Hi, and welcome back to this last segment of Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840. Number to call if you want to join the conversation, 888-589-8840. Let's grab a call from Pete in Hattiesburg to start this last segment. Pete, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just want to mention the fact that I really believe that the Democrats are godless and the Republicans are gutless. And when it comes November, I will not be voting for Thad Cochran because, I mean, why would I vote for a rhino when I can get a real Democrat?
Well, you know, it's interesting to me. I'm kicking myself because I had that Democrat from Arkansas on the phone last hour, and he said if he was in Mississippi, he would vote for Thad Cochran. And that kind of struck me because, and I don't know why I didn't ask him at the time. It didn't dawn on me till after we were done. But here's a Democrat saying that if he was in Mississippi, he would vote for Thad Cochran. So it kind of goes to your point, Pete. It sounds to me like he sees Thad Cochran as basically little or no different from the average Democrat.
Roger that.
Yeah. All right, people, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. You know, let's go back to this Bo Bergdahl thing for 1 minute. I've had this Charles Krauthammer clip in the bank here for a week or two. He actually was making this observation when Bo Bergdahl was under wraps, had a bag over his head in Germany, and nobody was able to talk to him. I had a member of the press from my hometown of Boise, Idaho, which he's from the state of Idaho. They wouldn't let him get within 300 feet of the facility. Not only could he not get in the facility, he couldn't even get within 300 feet of the facility. They were so eager to keep this guy under wraps and shrouded and secreted away. Well, the same thing is true. He's back in the States. He's in this kind of rehabilitation deal in Texas. They haven't even asked him. They haven't talked at all with him yet about why he left the base. Everybody knows he left. Why? We still don't know. They did an investigation in 2009 and basically concluded he wandered off on his own. He wasn't kidnapped. He wandered off, went AWOL. Now, here is Charles Krauthammer, and I think he's talking here about a concern I believe that the government still has. You want to know why nobody's been able to get to Bo Bergdahl, nobody's been able to talk to him. I think the government is desperately afraid of what he might say. Remember, President Obama had the big deal in the Rose Garden with his parents, treating him as a homecoming hero. His hometown in Idaho was going to have all the ribbons and the parades. It was going to be a celebration, war hero coming home. And then the truth started coming out about the fact this guy was a deserter minimum, maybe AWOL, maybe even worse than that, maybe an actual traitor to his country, and all of a sudden all the air kind of leaked out of the balloon. And now I think that the Obama administration is trying to run out the clock. They are trying to allow so much time to pass between now and whenever Bo Bergdahl emerges into public view, it'll be an old story. They'll be saying, hey, dude, that was like 6 months ago. That's old news. Let's move on. So anyway, here is what Krauthammer thinks is part of the deal, part of the reason the Obama administration will not let this guy out in public.
The question I have is what's going on in the hospital where he is in Germany. They obviously want to give him some privacy. We are getting infinitely less information out of our own government about his actual health condition, which is the issue they're leaning on, than we are getting from the Taliban, which is rather interesting for an administration that prides itself on how open and honest and transparent it is. If this goes on any longer, I think we're going to have to imagine that perhaps there might be some witness tampering happening. At some point, we're going to have to look at this guy, have him speak to America, have a judgment about how healthy he is or was, and explain exactly what were the circumstances of his leaving service.
So Charles Krauthammer is saying, look, I think witness tampering is going on here. I think he's exactly right. The Obama administration not going to let this guy out of their clutches until they are convinced that his mind is right about his story. His story is right. His story is not going to blow back on them. 888-589-8840. Let's grab clip number 3. We had a disastrous economic report. This thing is far worse than anybody's letting on. The media basically not wanting even to touch this thing. But the revised report out is that the economy actually shrank by 3% in the first quarter. Originally, they said they estimated that it shrank by 0.1%. and that got some attention in the news. Then they come out and revise those figures, and it shrank by 2.9%. The economy, ladies and gentlemen, is getting smaller. It is shrinking, and this is because of Obama's regulations. It's because of Obamacare. It is because of the tax burden. I mean, more and more American businesses, they're trying to run, but it's like trying to run a sprint through the shallow end of the swimming pool. It's resistance at every stride. Everything is slowing down. Things are getting gummed up. It's like one of those Imperial snow walkers. Remember in the Star Wars movies, you got those big giant Imperial snow walkers, and they fly those TIE fighters around them or whatever they are and wrap them up with the cable, and then the cable just kind of slows them down and stops them, and then the whole thing eventually falls over. It's like that's what's being done by the Obama administration's policies to our economy. So it shrunk by 3%. Now, I want you to listen to the explanation from the liberal media, clip number 3, the explanation from the liberal media about why the economy shrank in the first quarter.
There's been a revision in the economy first quarter of the year. What is it?
Yeah, big revision. So it came in initially as a negative 1% contraction. They've revised it down to a 2.9% contraction for the first quarter.
So that's almost a 3% decline in the economy in the first quarter, a lot of it weather related. How does that stack up, though, historically? That sounds
According to Dow Jones, just looking at it now, Joe, it's the biggest non-recession quarterly drop in 58 years. Whoa. But you brought up the key word, the W word. Here's the thing. Weather. I know people like to blame everything on the weather. John, you were just making a good point. This quarter really actually was horrible. Mm-hmm. Like you couldn't, people didn't go to restaurants for weeks. So we're waiting to see what happens with the second quarter and whether we're not going to completely sharply rebound. That negative 2.9% contraction is a big number, but people are optimistic going forward. They still are.
I heard, Mika, the weather was so bad, especially in upstate New York, that Bill Clinton didn't go to the local grocery store for 2 weeks.
Now, what Joe Scarborough is talking about there, Bill Clinton's out there hacking and flacking for Hillary. She keeps sticking her foot in her mouth. Not really truly well off. CNN laughs hysterically when she says that. We came out of the White House dead broke. We had to scramble together to be able to put together mortgages for our houses, plural. Now we find out Bill Clinton's out there buying $550 watches. They're worth $100 million. A little tough to work up sympathy. But Bill Clinton says, hey, we're ordinary people. We go to the grocery store. We talk to people at the grocery store. We are quite ordinary people. Now, remember, they're blaming this on the weather. The last time, ladies and gentlemen, that we had a quarter with weather this bad was 1984. And the economy grew in that quarter, bad weather and all, it grew by 4%. So this business, how it's the weather, people stayed home because it's so cold, they don't go out to eat, they don't go to the grocery store. It's just completely bogus. And the difference, of course, obviously, is who is president. In 2014, you have bad weather. It's not the bad weather, it is the economic policies of this administration. 1984, Ronald Reagan grows by 4%. And by the way, speaking of the economy overall, in real dollars, weekly earnings are down from 1973. This is inflation in adjusted dollars. Real weekly earnings were $825 in 1973. To get today, inflation adjusted, they are $690. So the real income, inflation adjusted, comparing wages in 73 to wages in 2014, they are down by what is at $135 a week. All right, let's grab a couple of phone calls. Let's go to Steve, Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Steve, welcome. What's on your mind?
Brian, I'm Steve. I'm
Yes, sir.
originally from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. I live in Jackson now. I'm a big fan of your programs and for what you stand for. I'm very involved in the pro-life movement, and for the sake of unborn children, for the sake of Israel and our country, we need to support Senator Thad Cochran now that the primary is over. Senator Cochran is 100% pro-life and 100% pro-Israel. I like Chris McDaniel. I think he has a great future. But, Brian, we don't have write-in provisions in Mississippi. It's too late for an independent, and the only game in town now is to support Pulitzer to Thad Cochran on November the 5th for the sanctity of life and for unborn children.
All right, Steve, listen, I appreciate your call. And he does have a 100% rating from the pro-life group. So Senator Cochran has been a consistent vote for pro-life. He's gotten consistently high ratings from the NRA. All right, let's go to Gary in South Oregon. Gary, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hello, Brian. Yet again, a wonderful show.
Thank you.
I was going to suggest the write-in for McDaniel, but hearing the previous caller, it sounds like Mississippi doesn't have a provision for writing in. So,
well, there is. Every ballot's got a write-in line on it.
Okay. Well,
so people
can
write in a candidate. Now, if you're going to run as an independent, officially run a campaign as an independent, you have a filing date. That's gone. But that doesn't mean that a grassroots write-in campaign can't happen.
Sure. What I would do is I would have the McDaniel supporters just get out and still keep their McDaniel signs out there and just alter them with write-in McDaniel. From what I gather from you, Cochran will beat the Democrats and McDaniel will beat Cochran. So write in McDaniel and do everything it takes to make sure the ballot box is counted publicly.
All right. Well, listen, Gary, I appreciate that call. There's a caller from Oregon encouraging conservatives in Mississippi to keep their Chris McDaniel signs up in their yards and to plan to write in his name in November. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back here tomorrow for Fire Hose Friday, Free for All Friday. Now may the Lord of Peace himself give you peace at all times in every way. May the Lord be with you all. Don't forget to bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and never forget, as Mike DePrimo and the Supreme Court ruling today proves, we are fighting winnable wars. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.